Welcome to my channel ExposedSecretsTales. Your one click means everything to me. Please don't forget to subscribe. Thank you. I'm Daniel, the man who thought he knew everything about his life until the night a smear of red changed it forever. It began on a cold evening when the air smelled of rain and the streets glistened under the fading glow of the lamps. I came home late, my tie loosened, my mind still buzzing with work. My wife, Clara, was in the living room, reading with a calmness that almost felt too staged. She greeted me with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I remember walking to the coat stand, reaching for my jacket, and finding another one draped neatly beside it. One that didn't belong to me. I froze, but Clara spoke before I could ask. "Oh, that's just your brother's," she said casually, flipping a page in her book without looking up. "He dropped by earlier." The explanation was smooth, almost too smooth. I nodded, pretending to believe her, though unease had already begun whispering in the corners of my mind. Later, as I hung up my jacket, something slipped from the inner pocket and landed softly on the floor. A lipstick tube. The color was a deep, daring crimson, unlike anything Clara owned. She always wore soft pinks and neutral shades, never bold reds. I bent to pick it up, my heart thudding. The lipstick seemed to burn in my hand. Clara noticed me holding it. For the briefest moment, her eyes flickered with recognition. Then she lowered her gaze back to the book, as though nothing unusual had happened. She didn't explain. She didn't flinch. She simply pretended it wasn't there. I slipped the lipstick into my palm and sat down opposite her. My mind spun. Was it really my brother's jacket, or was it another man's? And why would she not even acknowledge what I had found? Dinner that night was silent, her fork moving rhythmically, while I barely touched my plate. Every time I looked at her, she avoided my stare. And yet I caught her stealing glances at me, as though testing whether I would break the silence first. When we went to bed, I kept the lipstick hidden in the drawer of my nightstand. Its presence felt like a loaded gun waiting to go off. Clara curled beside me, resting her head on my shoulder as if nothing at all was wrong. But her closeness only deepened the ache inside me. The next morning, I checked the jacket again. It was gone, vanished. Only my own remained on the stand. I asked her where it was, pretending casual curiosity. "Oh, I gave it back already," she said smoothly, pouring coffee into my mug. "He stopped by again this morning." But I hadn't heard the door open. I hadn't heard footsteps. Nothing. Doubt turned into suspicion, suspicion into a quiet rage I tried to swallow. I wanted to ask her outright, but something held me back. Was I afraid of the truth? Or of hearing her lie again? The lipstick stayed hidden, though. She hadn't asked about it, not once, and that silence screamed louder than any words she could have spoken. That night, unable to sleep, I took the lipstick from the drawer and turned it over in my hand. The cap bore a faint fingerprint smudge, not mine. My chest tightened as questions clawed at me. Who did it belong to? And why had she left it behind? I glanced over at Clara, fast asleep, her breathing steady, her face calm in the dim light. She looked like the woman I had trusted for 10 years, the woman I had built a life with. But now, shadows of doubt hovered above her like unseen phantoms, and as I stared at her, one thought refused to leave me. What if she wanted me to find it? The thought wrapped itself around me like a noose. If she had left the lipstick on purpose, then it wasn't just carelessness. It was a message. But to me? Or to someone else? I sat up in bed, unable to stay still any longer. The quiet rhythm of Clara's breathing only made the silence heavier. My eyes drifted back to the nightstand where the lipstick rested. I picked it up again, pressing the cap until it clicked open. The red tip was worn, flattened from frequent use. Whoever owned it had applied it often. Clara never wore red, not once in all the years I had known her. The weight of suspicion pressed on me. I thought back to her easy explanations, the jacket, the supposed visit from my brother, the way she pretended not to notice when I held the lipstick in my hand. All too convenient. All too smooth. The next morning, I left early for work, carrying the lipstick in my briefcase. I couldn't let it stay in the house where she might take it back. At the office, I placed it inside my drawer and stared at it as though it might whisper the truth to me if I looked long enough. That evening, when I returned home, I decided to test her. I casually asked, "Did my brother say anything when he came this morning? You didn't mention why he dropped by twice?" She hesitated for only a second before answering. "Just to check on us, that's all." Her smile was thin, rehearsed. I forced myself to nod, but my chest burned. My brother Michael and I hadn't spoken in weeks after a sharp disagreement. Why would he suddenly stop by twice without even reaching out to me? The lie tasted bitter. Later that night, Clara dressed for bed in her soft cotton gown. As she brushed her hair, I noticed something faint along the edge of her wrist, a smear of color. My pulse quickened. It wasn't makeup she usually used. It was red. I leaned closer, pretending to adjust the lamp. "What's that on your arm?" I asked. She glanced down quickly, then rubbed at it with the back of her hand. "Just ink from a pen," she said, too quickly, too smoothly. But I knew better. Days passed, and I tried to watch her without making it obvious. She grew careful, too, leaving fewer traces, speaking less. But it was the silence that betrayed her more than anything. A silence filled with secrets. One night, while she showered, I searched her handbag. My hands trembled as I unzipped each pocket, expecting, hoping to find nothing. But inside, hidden beneath a folded scarf, was a small scrap of paper with a phone number scrawled in black ink. No name, just the number. I wrote it down, my heart hammering. When Clara stepped out of the bathroom, steam following her, I quickly closed the bag and pretended to read. She didn't notice. Or maybe she pretended not to notice the same way she had with the lipstick. The next morning, when she left for errands, I dialed the number. My breath caught as it rang once, twice. Then a man's voice answered. "Hello?" Froze. My throat went dry. He sounded calm, assured, as if he were expecting someone familiar. I didn't speak, afraid my silence might give me away. After a long pause, he hung up. That voice didn't belong to my brother. My mind raced as I slipped the phone back into my pocket. The lipstick, the jacket, the lies. And now, this unknown man. The pieces were falling into place, but I still couldn't see the full picture. That evening, I watched Clara set the table. Her hands graceful, her face unreadable. Every smile she gave me felt like a mask. The lipstick burned in my mind. Finally, I asked softly, "Clara, do you love me?" She looked up, her eyes locking with mine. For a heartbeat, something flickered there. Fear, perhaps, or guilt. Then she smiled. "Of course I do." But her voice trembled, and in that tremble, I heard the truth she was trying to hide. The words repeated in my mind long after she had spoken. Clara smiled again, softer this time, then lowered her gaze as if the conversation were over. But I couldn't let it end there. Not with the lipstick still burning in my drawer at work. Not with the sound of that stranger's voice still echoing in my ear. That night, as she drifted into sleep beside me, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. Every breath she took, every shift she made beneath the sheets, felt like a performance, her body lying close, but her heart drifting somewhere far away. By morning, I had made a decision. I needed answers, not guesses. And if she wouldn't give them, I'd find them myself. After breakfast, I told her I had an early meeting and left the house sooner than usual. Instead of heading to work, I parked a short distance down the street, close enough to see the front door but hidden enough that she wouldn't notice. An hour passed, then another. The curtain shifted once, and I caught a glimpse of Clara pacing, her phone pressed to her ear. She didn't look relaxed. She looked anxious, nervous, like someone waiting. At last, a dark sedan pulled up across the street. A man stepped out, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a gray jacket. My pulse thundered. He walked quickly, confidently, and Clara opened the door before he even knocked. She greeted him with a smile I hadn't seen in months. They didn't notice me. They didn't look around. And when he stepped inside, Clara closed the door softly, as though sealing me out of whatever world they shared. I sat frozen in my car, torn between rage and disbelief. Part of me wanted to storm inside, to demand the truth right there. But another part whispered caution. If I went in unprepared, I'd only hear more lies. I needed to know exactly what was happening before I confronted her. Minutes crawled into an hour. The car still sat parked, its engine silent, its owner hidden inside my home. My home. Finally, the door opened. The man stepped out, adjusting his jacket, his expression calm. Clara lingered at the doorway, her smile fading only after he had gone. She stood there for a long moment, staring at the street as though listening for something. Then she shut the door again. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white. The truth was no longer a shadow. It was flesh and blood. But who was he? A friend? A stranger? Or the owner of that crimson lipstick? When she left the house later to run errands, I seized my chance. My hands shook as I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The rooms felt different, the air carrying a faint scent that wasn't mine. Cologne, sharp and masculine. I searched the living room, the dining area, the kitchen. Nothing. Then, in the bedroom, I noticed the edge of a jacket sleeve peeking out from beneath the bed. My heart hammered as I pulled it out. It wasn't my brother's. It wasn't mine. And in the pocket, resting like a mocking secret, was another lipstick. This one a darker shade, almost wine-colored, its cap scratched and worn. I stared at it, my breath unsteady. 2 lipsticks now, 2 lies. Suddenly, footsteps sounded outside, the click of keys in the lock. Clara was back. I barely had time to slip the jacket and lipstick into the closet before the door opened. She stepped in, her shopping bags swinging, her smile quick and bright. "Daniel?" she said warmly, as though nothing at all was wrong. "You're home early." My chest tightened. I forced a smile, hiding the storm inside me. But in that moment, I knew one thing with chilling certainty. She was never going to tell me the truth on her own. That realization struck me harder than anything else. Clara's smile, her calm voice, her careful movements, everything was a mask. And behind that mask, she kept secrets I wasn't meant to uncover. I helped her with the shopping bags, pretending nothing was wrong. She spoke casually about groceries, the weather, even mentioned a neighbor she ran into. Not once did she stumble, not once did she slip, but every word she spoke rang hollow. All I could think of was the jacket I had hidden in the closet, and the second lipstick resting inside it. That night, as she slept, I lay awake, turning over a plan in my mind. If she would not confess, I would force the truth into the light. Not by anger, not by accusations, but by patience, by watching, by waiting. The following days, I studied her carefully. She grew more restless, often stepping out for short errands. That seemed unnecessary. She began dressing with more attention, perfume, hair carefully styled, lips shimmering faintly, though never in the bold red of the lipstick I'd found. One afternoon, I followed her. She left the house briskly, clutching her handbag tight. My car trailed at a distance, my eyes locked on her every turn. She drove toward the edge of town to a quiet cafe I'd never seen before. I parked across the street and waited. She went. Inside, sliding into a booth by the window, Minutes later, the man appeared, the same one who had entered my house. His gray jacket hung over his arm, his expression easy, familiar. Clara's face lit up when she saw him. Not the polite smile she gave me, not the practiced one she wore at home. This smile was alive, real, unguarded. They spoke quietly, leaning, close, their hands brushing once across the table. My throat tightened. Every gesture between them carried a weight I couldn't deny. Then it happened. She reached into her bag, pulling out something small. I squinted through the glass until I realized what it was. Another lipstick, the wine-colored one I had hidden, except she hadn't noticed I'd moved it, which meant she had another. The man smiled as she twirled it in her hand, like a signal, like a code only they understood. Then she set it on the table, almost casually, before slipping it back into her bag. I couldn't watch any longer. My chest burned, and I drove away before they saw me. That evening, Clara returned home cheerful, humming softly as she cooked dinner. I sat at the table, silent, my hands clenched in my lap. Every sound, every movement she made felt sharpened by betrayal. At one point, she caught me staring. "You're quiet tonight," she said gently. "I'm just tired," I lied. But the truth pulsed inside me like a drumbeat. Later, after she fell asleep, I crept into the closet and pulled out the jacket again. I searched the pockets once more, hoping, fearing, and I found something new. A folded napkin, faintly stained with lipstick, with 3 words written across it in hurried ink. "Meet me again." My chest tightened as though the walls of the room were collapsing around me. She wasn't just hiding an affair, she was planning it, arranging it, nurturing it. I sank onto the bed, clutching the napkin in my fist, staring at the woman sleeping peacefully beside me. And in that moment, I made a silent vow. If she wouldn't tell me the truth, I would drag it out into the open myself. The vow stayed with me, heavier than any promise I had ever made. I could no longer afford to sit silently in the shadows while Clara lived another life behind closed doors. The next morning, I slipped the napkin back into the jacket pocket exactly as I had found it. I needed her to believe nothing had been disturbed, that her secrets were safe. Only then could I follow the trail she was leaving for someone else. At breakfast, she smiled as though nothing were wrong. She asked about my work, about whether I would be late again. Her eyes searched. Mine, calm, steady, but now I knew better. Behind those eyes lay a storm she thought I couldn't see. That evening, as she left for errands once more, I followed her again. The road stretched quiet beneath the fading sun until once more she stopped at the same cafe. The man was already there, waiting. I parked farther this time where they couldn't spot me. My chest thudded as I watched her slide into the booth across from him. Their meeting was shorter, hushed, but no less intimate. They leaned close, their heads nearly touching. She placed her hand briefly on his, a fleeting moment that seared into me like fire. When they left, they didn't walk out together. She exited first, calm, composed, while he followed minutes later. Careful, deliberate. They thought they were unseen, but I saw everything. The next day, I confronted my brother, Michael. I had to be sure. "Have you been to the house recently?" I asked, watching him carefully. He frowned, shaking his head. "No, not in weeks." "Why?" Something inside me broke. Clara hadn't just lied once. She had woven an entire web of deceit. The jacket had never been his. The story had been nothing more than a cover. I thanked him, forcing my voice to stay steady, and left before he could press further. That night, when Clara came to bed, I turned on my side, pretending to sleep. But inside, my mind was alive with one plan. I would follow her again. Not to the cafe, not to whispered meetings. I would wait until she thought I was gone, and then I would find out exactly where this road ended. The chance came 2 nights later. I told her I had late work, kissed her forehead, and left the house. Instead of driving to the office, I circled back and parked near the corner of our street, hidden in the dark. An hour later, she emerged. This time, she wasn't casual. She was dressed differently, more carefully, as though preparing for something important. Her steps were quick, purposeful, and her phone glowed faintly in her hand as she typed a message. I followed. Not to the cafe this time. She drove farther, to the edge of town, where the roads narrowed and the lights thinned. At last, she pulled into a quiet motel, one that stood half-hidden behind trees, its neon sign flickering weakly. My stomach churned. I killed the engine and sat frozen, watching as she parked and stepped out of the car. The man was already there, waiting by the door. She smiled, real, unguarded, filled with a warmth she no longer gave me. And then, before disappearing inside with him, she reached into her bag and pulled out that crimson lipstick. Slowly, deliberately, she applied it to her lips, as though sealing her betrayal in red. I gripped the steering wheel, my hands trembling, my vision blurring with rage and heartbreak. For the first time, I wasn't just suspicious. I wasn't just imagining shadows. I had seen the truth with my own eyes. Those words echoed in my head as I sat in the car, staring at the flickering motel sign. Clara had walked inside with him, her lipstick bold and bright, her smile wide and unguarded. She wasn't the woman she pretended to be at home. She wasn't the wife who laid her head on my shoulder at night. She was someone else entirely. Minutes passed, then hours. I couldn't bring myself to leave. My mind kept racing. Between fury and despair, between the urge to storm inside and the fear of what I might find. At last, near midnight, the door opened. Clara stepped out, her hair slightly disheveled, her jacket pulled close. The man followed behind her, his hand brushing hers before they parted ways. He climbed into his sedan and drove off, leaving her standing there for a moment, staring at the ground as though lost in thought. Then she turned, heading to her car, and drove home. I followed at a distance, my headlights dimmed, my heart beating so hard I thought it might betray me. When we reached the house, she moved quietly, slipping inside as though nothing had happened, as though she hadn't just shattered everything we had built together. I sat in the car, gripping the steering wheel, breathing raggedly. I couldn't confront her yet, not like this, not with my voice shaking and my heart in pieces. I needed proof, hard proof, something she couldn't twist into another lie. The next morning, I pretended as though nothing had happened. I kissed her cheek, went to work, smiled when she asked about my day, but inside, a storm raged. At lunch, I contacted a private investigator, someone discreet, someone who could follow her when I couldn't. If Clara wanted to live 2 lives, I would uncover both. Days turned into a blur of waiting. The investigator sent me updates, photos, of Clara meeting the man again at the cafe, at the motel, even at a park where they walked side by side, their hands brushing like young lovers. Each picture drove the knife deeper. But it was the last photo that crushed me most. Clara sitting in the man's car, laughing with her head thrown back, her lips painted the same crimson red as the lipstick I had first found in my jacket pocket. The smile she once gave me now belonged to someone else. When I returned home that evening, Clara greeted me warmly, her eyes soft, her voice gentle. She kissed my cheek, asked if I was hungry, if I was tired. I looked at her, really looked, and for the first time I saw a stranger in her eyes. I wanted to confront her right there, to slam the photos onto the table, to demand answers, but my chest tightened. My throat closed. Words failed me. So instead, I stayed silent. But silence has a way of betraying you. That night, as we lay in bed, Clara turned to me and whispered, "You've been distant lately. Is something wrong?" I swallowed hard. My lips parted, the truth trembling on the edge. But then I stopped, because in that moment, I realized something chilling. She wasn't asking because she cared. She was asking because she suspected I knew. Her voice was soft, her expression gentle, but I could see the calculation behind her eyes. She wasn't searching for my feelings, she was measuring how much I had uncovered. I forced a smile. "Nothing's wrong, Clara, just work stress." She studied me for a long moment, her gaze steady before nodding and turning away. But I could feel her unease, the way her body tensed slightly under the blanket. For the first time, it wasn't just me watching her. She was watching me, too. The next morning, I hid the investigator's photos in my briefcase. If Clara suspected, she would start looking. I couldn't risk leaving them in the house. At breakfast, she hummed softly while pouring coffee, her movements graceful, almost too graceful. "Are you working late tonight?" she asked, her tone light. "Yes," I replied, though I had no such plans. I wanted to see what she would do in my absence. That evening, I parked my car several streets away and returned on foot. From the shadows, I watched our house. Sure enough, within an hour, Clara emerged, dressed neatly, her hair carefully styled. She walked quickly to her car and drove off. I followed, my pulse hammering. She didn't go to the cafe this time. She didn't go to the motel. Instead, she headed downtown, to a quiet restaurant with dim lighting and curtained windows. The man was already there, waiting by the entrance. She greeted him with that same unguarded smile. From across the street, I watched them walk inside together. Minutes later, through the narrow gap in the curtain, I saw them seated close, her hand resting on his arm. They looked like a couple, not two people sneaking in shadows. My chest burned. I slipped inside the restaurant quietly, choosing a table at the far corner where the darkness cloaked me. From there, I could see them clearly. Clara laughed, her face glowing with life, her lipstick bold and red. The man leaned closer, whispering something that made her eyes soften in a way I hadn't seen in years. Every detail was a dagger. I clenched my fists beneath the table, fighting the urge to march over and tear the illusion apart. But I held back. Not yet. Not here. The waiter approached me quietly. "Sir, would you like to order?" I shook my head, my eyes never leaving Clara. The man reached into his pocket, pulling out something small. He slid it across the table to her, a small box. Clara opened it slowly, and even from a distance, I caught the glint of metal inside. A piece of jewelry. She covered her mouth with her hand, smiling through what looked like tears of joy. Then, she reached across and clasped his hand tightly. The restaurant blurred around me. My pulse roared in my ears. It wasn't just an affair, it was something deeper, something she was willing to wear. I pushed back from the table, unable to breathe, and slipped out into the night air. My legs shook as I leaned against the wall outside, staring up at the dim stars. For weeks, I had told myself I was imagining things, that maybe I was wrong. But now, there was no doubt left. Clara wasn't slipping away from me. She was already gone. The words gnawed at me as I drove home that night. The sight of the jewelry box, her glowing smile, the way her hand lingered on his. It replayed again and again in my mind. Every mile I covered back to the house felt heavier, as though I were dragging the weight of betrayal behind me. When I stepped inside, Clara was already home. She stood in the kitchen, humming softly, preparing tea as if nothing had happened. Her face lit up when she saw me, calm and practiced, the same mask she wore every day. But I was done pretending. "Clara," I said, my voice steady, though my chest trembled. "We need to talk." She paused, the spoon clinking softly against the cup. About what? I placed my briefcase on the table, opened it, and slid the photographs across the wood. One by one, her laughter, her touches, her stolen moments with him stared back at her in frozen frames. Her hands stilled. Her eyes flickered from the photos to me. For the first time, the mask slipped. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Don't," I cut in. "Don't tell me they're lies. Don't tell me it's innocent. I followed you. I saw the motel, the cafe. Tonight at the restaurant." Her lips parted, but no words came. The silence between us stretched, thick and suffocating. Finally, she sank into the chair, her hands trembling as she clasped them together. Tears welled in her eyes, though she didn't let them fall. "I never wanted you to find out like this," she said softly. I felt my heart twist. "So it's true." She nodded slowly, the tears finally breaking free. "Yes, it's true." The words struck like knives even though I already knew them. Hearing her say it made it real in a way no photograph ever could. I leaned against the wall, my strength faltering. "Why, Clara? After everything? After 10 years? Her gaze lifted to mine, pained but unflinching. "Because somewhere along the way we stopped seeing each other. You buried yourself in work. I buried myself in silence. And then, he was there." Her honesty cut deeper than her lies ever had. I wanted to shout, to rage, to demand she take it all back. But the fight drained from me. All I could do was stare at the woman I thought I knew, realizing she had slipped beyond my reach long before I ever noticed. I closed the briefcase slowly, gathering the photos back inside. "I don't know what happens next," I said quietly. "But I can't unsee what I've seen." Clara reached for me, her hand trembling in the air between us. "Daniel, please." I stepped back. The distance between us, once invisible, now stretched like a canyon that neither of us could cross. For the first time, I understood the truth. The lipstick, the lies, the jacket, the man. It had all been leading here, to this silence, this emptiness, this moment where the woman I loved became a stranger sitting across the table. And as I walked away, leaving her tears behind me, one thought echoed in my mind. The lipstick was never an accident. It had always been her goodbye.